Good evening and welcome everybody to episode number 19 of Triple Tap. As you may see, it is just Kim and I here just for the moment. So how are you, Kim, this evening? Filling in for Lance tonight. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Ainsley. Hi, everybody. Great tonight. It's been a very busy week. Had a wonderful presentation that happened in Mackay last night with about 70 people of what's going on and initiatives that are underway. So it was really good to see a great turnout and another one next week. So really happy about that.
Excellent. And of course, we will be having Kent join us in just a few moments, guys. So we will get underway, and we've got some exciting guests to share with us tonight. So we're looking forward to this one. So I know, Kim, you've been super busy up there. You're always so busy up in Mackay, and there's a lot going on in the Australia project and the TAP satellite groups, isn't there?
Always a heap going on, and things are coming together just wonderfully with so many projects on the go, so many things that are going to be really amazing for people to step into, I think is the word that we're looking for. So yeah, great, amazing projects that we're all really busy with. So it's good to see.
Because we know our current system, as most of you know who are listening on the call, we know our current system is failing. It's corrupt. It doesn't work. It definitely needs an overhaul. And of course, there's a lot of people in the freedom movement doing things or, going to protest and what. But the Australia Project has been working very, very hard behind the scenes, creating alternative systems that we can step into, which is why our TAP satellite groups around the country are so, so important. So if you're listening here tonight and you're not part of a TAP satellite group, we do encourage you to find one on our website, theaustraliaproject.org. Find your local TAP satellite group and get involved and find out all the different initiatives, from the TAP New Schools to the satellite groups to the Street Reps Australia, all the different initiatives. We've got banking platforms coming. We've got so many good things coming that we would love you guys to be a part of. And of course, our Triple Tap is just another way that we can connect you with some of the most amazing people and speakers around Australia that have got some great information to share. So I'm going to get on and read you a little bit of information about our two lovely guests this evening, and then we'll bring them onto the call and we'll get underway with our interview. So first of all, we have Iman. Iman holds a master's in science specializing in soils and plant nutrition, and has worked in this field in Australia and elsewhere for 45 years and counting, introducing many innovations. The first 3 decades of his life saw him navigating life under civil war, sectarian conflicts, proxy wars, several times losing his home and being held hostage for 7 months. Maybe he might tell us a little bit more about that. Behind much of those situations stood global power cliques exercising their various agenda, the very same characters and institutions we are dealing with now. Iman possesses unique insights in international political analysis, and being a scientist, observes and analyzes situations with deep insight and rationality. Susan holds postgraduate qualifications in public policy and management, has worked all her life in community development projects, management of projects and NGOs, while simultaneously being engaged in voluntary projects related to political and developmental struggles, passions stemming from her childhood. With an undergraduate background in political science, international relations and Asian history, she is a keen observer of, and at times an activist in global and national events. And in the last decade, delved deeply into aspects of hybrid warfare. So maybe we'll get to have a chat a little bit more with Susan about that. In recent years, Susan and Iman, I knew I'd stuff it up sometime tonight. Iman, are deeply engaged in networking, building community and initiating projects in their local areas to build a more viable, healthy and integrity-based paradigm. I know they're heavily involved in the Stand in a Park in Nambour in Queensland. So hopefully we get to hear a little bit more about that too tonight. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's bring on Iman and Susan Safi to the call. Iman and Susan, are you there? Turn your videos on and let's have a chat with you. Can you see us, guys? Are you there?
The host has stopped it.
Yeah, it says you cannot start your video.
There we go. There we go, guys. If you turn your video on now, you should be right now. There we go. Welcome, Susan and Iman. How are you both?
Well, we're very well, thank you. Thank you very much.
I was doing so well until that last little part, Iman. It was just like rolled off the tongue, so apologies for that.
Don't you worry, I'm used to that.
Iman, when we were talking a little bit earlier this afternoon, you mentioned a very interesting term to me, which I'd never heard before. So I'm going to get you to explain what it is for our audience. And you said to me this afternoon, or Susan said to me, that you're an agronomist. Is that right?
Agronomist.
Agronomist.
Actually, yeah. The term agronomist is the technical term for an agricultural scientist. Like an apiarist is a beekeeper. There's technical terms for every profession. Yeah. So an agronomist is an agricultural scientist. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Now, I'll kick it off with we've got a lot of questions to ask you this evening, and I know Kim's probably got some questions as well, and I'll be keeping an eye on our chat box if any of our audience have any questions for you both this evening. But your experiences of war, civil unrest and hardships that come with this world place you in a position of strength in navigating your way through our current challenges. Can you expand on this and how such insights and knowledge can help others? Because we're going through some pretty challenging times for a lot of people that we've never experienced before.
Yeah, look, experiencing war can come in different ways. And in my situation, I was totally defenseless because there was a crazy war raging around me and I wasn't partaking in it. So what I had to learn was survival skills and, sniffing out danger and, before it comes to hit you and deciding what to do, where to go, when to go, and where to go to. And these are very, very important survival skills.
Hello, both, and it's lovely to see you. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you.
And an amazing background and experience that you've both had. How would you find what I would call a war today, as opposed to the ones that you've both been through? Because they're quite different, aren't they, in a lot of ways?
Well, they are quite different, and there are a lot of similarities as well. But on the scale of, like comparison, what we see today, of course, in Australia at least, not perhaps what's happening in Europe at the moment, is very mild, thankfully. We don't have a raging war. We don't have to leave our homes. We don't have to do crazy things that are crucial for our survival. But having said that, we need to be able to understand that there are always dangers, and we have to be fully prepared without going crazy, without going paranoid, and without being irrational. We just need to be prepared.
Well, I would say that warfare of today is a very different presentation. It is still a war in every sense of the word, but we have terms like hybrid war, asymmetric war, where every type of technology, every conceivable modern aspect of our life has been used as warfare against us. So this is why I have mentioned that I have been involved in researching into hybrid warfare. So.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting too. For me, I find this has been done in such an underhanded, and this particular last couple of years has been very, very much a psychological war, and it's a psychological assault on the mass population. And it's quite disturbing how successful it has been throughout the last couple of years in particular. And we know that they use that in most wars anyway. But it's been a lot more sneakily done, if you like, because there is no guns, there's no bombs, there's no having to look over your shoulder when you leave your home and so forth. So it's very much a hidden, almost a hidden war until it's been out in the open. Mm. I find that really interesting. Do you want to expand on hybrid wars?
The area of hybrid warfare that I paid a lot of attention to was because of the way how those sort of tactics, which I'll explain in a minute, were used in a succession of rolling wars of the empire against other nations that wouldn't come to heel, or that they wanted their resources, or other kinds of control, strategic resources, and so on. So, for instance, my area of interest was how wars are almost started and finished by the media. So that's a massive area of the media. But another area that I took a great interest in was all the various activist groups who are trying to get the truth out about different wars and exactly the situation we're in. We are activists. That hybrid warfare has even developed techniques as to how to join in with us as one of us, and even take over some of our movements without us even knowing. And they will tend to redirect the conversation, the narrative, to a point where we wouldn't even realize that there's something wrong, because it may be what we're interested in, but they may sort of go off like a broken record on a particular area, whilst drowning out the voices of the most important issues, or the voices of the real people. So social media is a huge part of modern hybrid warfare, and NATO is the creator of this aspect of hybrid warfare.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're talking about, obviously, like over these last couple of years, we've seen like a lot of breakdown in a lot of areas, families breaking down, relationship breaking down, businesses falling apart. What are some of the key priorities that you face when you see this breakdown in society?
Look, from my perspective, I like to focus on, the well-being of us, our people, the freedom movement people. And that concerns me as an agricultural scientist, because food security is a big issue. It's going to become bigger. So health and, it all comes with it, physical well-being, which comes hand in hand, with the food security. And these are a couple of things that we've been focusing on a lot, in our work at the Nambour stand in the park and other stands that we're associated with. And that's to develop our own skills, because obviously we don't have the answers for everything, but we have to develop our own skills and teach other people other skills that we already know, in order to make sure that, we're healthy, well-fed, and we expand our resources if we can, in case things break down. So where do we get food supplies from, for example, if the dirt hits the fan?
Yeah, you mentioned the stand in the parks. Obviously, you guys were very instrumental in setting up Stand in the Park in Nambour. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Stand in the Park does and why it's been so important? Because I myself am involved in a Stand in the Park here. I'm on the west side of Australia, and we go to them every Sunday, or nearly every Sunday. Occasionally, we have a day off. But for us, I guess it's been really important to connect with the people in the they've kind of become our close friends to a certain degree. So why was it important for you guys to start Nambour, and what have you guys got out of it? How big's your group? What have you got out of it?
Well, I think Susan is better equipped to answer this question.
We could probably answer it together.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, and I may be wrong, it looks like the Stand in the Park movement was the first real sort of organized gathering of people in this country who were concerned about what was going on. I may be wrong, but I think from there onwards things progressed, because when we tried to find places to have this Stand in the Park, we first tried one area and nobody would come out of their door except for two ladies who we love very much now. They were in an older community and they were terrified to be seen in public, because we were all being told we're endangering their lives. So then we had a big community meeting on the foothills, and where there were a lot more there than should be. And somebody reported me, and two police came to arrest me. But I didn't get arrested. And that's how we sort of decided, well, what do we want to do? And that's when all those people there said that they would agree that we'll find a better place than that, not so conspicuous either, and that we would start this Stand in the Park in Nambour. There was already a successful one going in Cotton Tree, which is about 30, 40 k's away. But, you know, we didn't really live near there. So this really in Nambour can encompass the foothills and even parts of the hilltop. And we've also got another one sort of that's associated with it, which is on the hilltop. So I'm not sure if I've answered much.
I would like to add something here. You know, it was an amazing opportunity actually to make good friends and meet a lot of new people, like-minded people, because, you know, I mean, you can live in an area for 20 years and make acquaintances, but you don't really make really good, solid friends. You know, the acquaintances, you can talk about holidays and eating out and stuff like that, which is very shallow and superficial. But the kind of people that we met at the stand, real, genuine, you know, honest people who are very well deeply connected with us at many, many levels. And we just absolutely love them.
What sort of things do you guys do each week at your stand in the park? I'm just curious. What do you do? Just stand around and talk, or are there things you do? We have conversations. What sort of things do you guys do?
We're very hardworking.
Well, actually, we sit down. We don't stand. We sit in the park. No, I'm just kidding. Look, we discuss many different things, and as I was saying before, we're trying to develop skills. You know. Different skills on how to make, for example, herbal concoctions, you know, that will help boost your immunity, and that's something that's very close to my heart and my areas of interest. And we've been trying also to develop contacts with people, you know, because in my profession, you know, I deal with a lot of growers, so we can have access to like farmer direct kind of supplies. And what else is, and help me here?
Oh gosh, we have a lot of different workshops on even like how to make very good and cheap vitamins and supplements. Also things like how to make for almost nothing really effective water filters, because a lot of these very expensive ones are not effective. We're very busy with ordering bulk foods and different items that we all use to make we're really busy with each other and together doing all of these things. And we're also very involved right now in getting up a better communication system for the event where it may go down. And what else? Gosh. Yes. Oh yes, and I'm shortly on Friday. I'm going to be putting together with someone else an emergency document for people to keep in their handbags in case they end up in hospital, because everybody will see it. It's very frightening, the stuff I've been finding out, and everyone needs to have that in their handbag and phone numbers.
Fantastic. Susan, that'd be something that we'd love to get from you if we can, and then share that around with all the TAP satellite groups as well, because that sounds like a handy little tool that everyone would like to know what it's about.
If I may add one more thing, you see, when you get a group of people, say 20, 30 of them, and you just meet, you have no idea who these people are. One of the first things that Susan did, and that was her initiative, was to get a list of their skills, you know, their professional background. And it's amazing when you look at the diversity of what each person can do. And when you combine all of these skills together, it just becomes absolutely amazing. You know, this person can do this, he cannot do that, but the other one can fill in to do other and before you know it, you can always create an alternative society if you want.
Yeah,
and we talk very much about building trust, because without building trust in the stand in the park, this is how we see it, because we're a very hardworking stand in the park. We're very busy teaching each other and mentoring each other. And at the same time, watching out to see how we can provide social support to each other. So, you know, it takes time to develop stand in the park in the way how most of us would like to see it, which is a community and like a family. You know, it's quite an amazing phenomenon, and I think we're doing a good job now. I think it took time, but I think we're really getting there.
Yeah, one of the things I love with our stand in the park is we get to share. I think even one of our listeners mentioned it in the comments there. We get to exchange foods that we grow with each other. We have a lady who does bees with honey, so we get lovely honey from her, and then we share some of our homegrown food that we're starting to get excess crops of, share with people, and it's just really great to be share. Like even there's a lot of small business owners that get together, so it's really nice to be able to share our skills and talents with each other instead of always buying and spending from the big corporations. So that's kind of one really cool thing that I like about this.
We're doing this as well, and we forgot to mention this. So that's a very important thing. It's not bartering, it's sharing. Exactly.
Sharing. Yeah. And they love it.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that you guys are so into building the community, because it's so critically important. We are also doing that up here. And it's vital. It's absolutely vital for what has been happening and what we can see is coming. And I think food is a major part of all of this, that perhaps a lot of people don't understand just where this has got the potential to go, that all of the things that they're talking about implementing. So one of the things that we're doing up here is backyard community gardens. We don't have anybody that's got a big plot of land that has put their hand up that we may be able to start a community garden there. So what sort of initiatives when it comes to food, like you have your food sharing or your barter swaps, but have you got other initiatives that might just be able to help our viewers or spark some ideas on what they can implement into their communities?
I'll just start with one little bit and then let's take it over to Iman. A lot of our community is semi-rural, so a lot of us have got a lot of land, and we're not about to go and do work on somebody else's land. But there are some groups who will go and help each other, and there are some people who grow things together. But I'll turn it to you, Iman.
You see, a lot of people, I mean, ideally like to seek and reach that stage of self-satisfaction, food-wise, which is really a little bit difficult, because you can't grow everything you need to grow on any given piece of land, especially when it comes to things like, say, wheat and meat and stuff like that, and rice. I mean, imagine growing rice. This is why, we like to be able to connect with as many rural communities and independent growers outside our region. So if we cannot, let's say, for some reason, go to the supermarket and buy, let's say, and we've taken this kind of initiative already, like getting, for example, almonds directly from growers in South Australia. We can't grow almonds here, not at the Sunshine Coast. So you really need to diversify your sources and go outside your region. And you may find that, of course, other regions need things that you can grow and they can't. But ideally, like on personal level, at least people can try to learn how to grow their own vegetables. Even if you have a little backyard, you can still grow your own vegetables, or at least most of it, which is a big start.
And a big thing is also we're all teaching each other about different plants that are edible. I mean, you should see our environment here. There are an incredible diversity of plants just growing all around you on the lawn or anywhere, or plants that have been used in other cultures, and they're just growing here. So we all just love teaching each other about how to forage, how to use these different plants. But apart from this food area, we're huge on medicines, how to care for ourselves, how to the health maintenance, and doing that for ourselves. That's massive.
Prevention is always better than cure. One of the initiatives that we've been involved in or are involved in at the moment, along with other organisations, is the Paddock to Plate initiative, which we're trying to grow nationally. I also have some international farmers on board. So we're really at the infancy stages of it still. But there is some software that's coming out, which you guys may very well be interested in as well, just to have some a wider market to open up to when it comes to direct from buyers selling. So, maybe that's something that we can all catch up about at some point.
Absolutely. Look, one of the biggest weaknesses, if I can put it this way, with the stand in the park, is that there isn't enough integration yet between different stands. We would love to see more of this happening. We would love to be able to share what we have and also benefit from what others have got to share with us. And that's both in terms of supplies and information and skills. It's very important that these stands integrate in the best way possible.
Absolutely. That's exactly how we make this all work. And it'd be great to see it rolling out around the nation so that everybody's going to be okay when this all happens. So that's great.
Cool. Iman, on a community building level, what have you been involved in terms of food security, and how does our audience, apart from growing their own foods, how do they get prepared for something like that? If a food shortage was to be announced, or we started seeing our shelves rapidly depleting of food, what can people do to really get prepared now for that without creating sort of that fear or that scaremongering?
Yeah, look, I'm glad you mentioned the term scaremongering, because there's quite a bit of it going on.
Mm.
And yes, look, the world is not in a good, and realize that we are very, very lucky being in Australia, because we are one of few nations that are net food exporters. So, I mean, if things get really, really bad, we may find it very difficult to find food on supermarket shelves. But before this happens, you're going to find certain items becoming hard to find. But, one of the things that people should do, apart from everything else, growing, learning how to grow things, sharing, bartering, all of these things, is also, I don't like to use that term, but prepping perhaps is the only word I can use, the only thing I can see, appropriate to use. And this doesn't have to be done in a panicky way, but there are things that people can buy and store, things, canned food, cereals, legumes, pulses, these kind of things. They store for a long time, even if you don't have, cooling facilities, cold storage facilities. So it's good to have quite a bit of powder milk, honey, chickpeas, broad beans, these kind of things, and store as much as you can, because, they're not going to go to waste. You will use them.
And people can rotate them over and then use them a little bit. And
exactly.
And do you think now would be a good time, if somebody hasn't started with their excess food storage now, because we hear that, food shortages could be happening, should they be really starting to stock up on those extras now?
Look, absolutely, because even if things don't become difficult to find, without any doubt, they're going to become much more expensive.
Yeah.
Like the price of fertilizers has, and that's really my area of work, fertilizers. The price of fertilizers has almost doubled, and some of them have tripled in the last year. Now, this is going to reflect on food price, the food that you put on your table. So if you're buying a certain item today for $5, you can rest assured that last year you were paying for it $3. Give it another year, who knows? You could be paying $10. I mean, we really don't know. We're really heading towards the unknown, and the more we prepare ourselves, if we're not, again, scaremongering is not a good thing. I never advocate it, but people need to be prepared. And if they can put something on the side and store it, then even better.
Fantastic. Iman, as a scientist, I hear that you're also passing on your love of science to groups of youth. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing with the youth side of things?
Well, this is the fun part of what I do. Well, it's all fun, really. A group of children, in a learning pod, I give them the occasional, well, it was more regular than before. We've been very busy recently. And I just teach them things, so, without any text, without any curriculum, no a preset schedule, just to, invoke in them the love of science, because it's very important, those STEM subjects. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And these subjects in the West, unfortunately, have become increasingly less and less favorable. And if you like them, actually, if a student likes this subject, he or she would be classified as a nerd, because you should only like football and sports, which is really sad, because it's really scientists who build the foundation of economy, who build the foundation of progress. And if we don't encourage science, then we will only step backwards and lose our ability to be world leaders. So it's very important to instill this love of science among young children.
Fantastic. I guess because I'm not into footy and cricket and all things like that, I guess more technological type stuff, I guess that makes me a nerd. So I'm happy to be a nerd or a geek, as I like to call myself. So in our freedom movement, we challenge bad and fake science as well, just changing the topic a little bit. What have been your concerns regarding this in the freedom movement?
It is a big concern, actually, because as a scientist, I look at facts. And I have seen recently a lot of bad science on both sides of this debate, on the freedom movement and the the narrative of the media. And if we want to be factual, if we want to be rational, we cannot be biased in our views. We have to analyze everything rationally, scientifically, and reach a scientific conclusion that is based on well-founded foundations. There's been a lot said about science recently, and people are mocking that term of trust the science, which I fully agree with, because we've seen a lot of bad science, okay, but it's the scientists who have been promoting bad ideas, some scientists. So we have to draw the distinction here between science and scientists, because some scientists are corrupt, but even if all of them become corrupt, science always is pure, honest, and cannot lie. Science does not lie. Scientists can, but science does not.
Yeah, it does. And I just think it never ceases to amaze me how many scientists will distort the truth, particularly over the last 2 years that we have seen coming out, where it's not necessarily the correct information that is being put out by scientists who might be a part of an organisation. Would you say, have you seen this as a consistency in other situations that you've been in as well previously, when it relates to science?
I was going to ask you to answer.
Okay, yeah. I think in other conflicts, and there may be massive conflicts, but there is no conflict like the one we're in now. This is unimaginable war that we're in now. So what we have seen in the past, absolutely, without a doubt, will be used. Those strategies will be used now, because they have almost like been practicing all of that in the past to perfect it, and now is the time to bring it to perfection. And one of the huge areas that I have to bite my lip on so often, because a lot of people here are not used to being involved in some other conflict, is the buckets and buckets of disinformation that are going out in our movement, to the point where no longer you can tell what is what. People are running from one corner to the other, trying to read everything, trying to hear everything, becoming totally confused. This is hybrid warfare. This is psychological. This is on every level to confuse, to have you befuddled, if that's the correct word. So there is a lot of yes, because one big thing I've seen, if you're an activist in a very big conflict and you start putting out information that is not correct, then you are worse than the enemy who has been using the media and information to start a war with their lies. So if you can't do your due diligence and make sure that everything you as an activist and a truth fighter puts out is correct, we all make mistakes though, then how are you any better? And I have had to bite my lip constantly, because I can't sit there saying, I know those guys from 10, 15 years ago. I know that media outlet. I know this, I know them. And I don't want to sound like a know-all, but I have a lot of experience with some of these particular outlets that people keep sharing everywhere. And some of them are there as clickbait or there to confuse and overwhelm us or redirect the narrative.
Oh, they are. It is absolutely 100%. There is so much, and it is creating a lot of confusion. And people really need to do their research and use the discernment on the information that they're getting in before they share it around. Because otherwise you're just running around in a fog all of the time, and you don't know which way is up.
The horror of it is the horrible thing in this war is that we're all trying to get that information right. We're all trying to understand it, but most of us are not scientific minded. Well, I'm not. So, we're trying to understand things that normally we wouldn't be even trying to understand.
Yeah.
So it's a really hard situation.
A lot of discernment, a lot of intuition, a lot of research, a lot of questioning goes a long way, that I've found over these last couple of years. Really look into things deeper and ask those questions. Like you said, we don't always get it right. There's stuff that's put up that people say, yep, is right. And then you find out later that it's not. So, as long as we can be vigilant and diligent with what we're doing, it certainly goes a long way. Susan, you mentioned that much of your work in the past in NGOs and political work, in hindsight, was part of the social engineering agenda, ripping our world apart. Do you want to comment a little bit more on that for us?
Yes, I have to be very kind to myself about that, because I think I was very aware of a lot of really huge stuff since I'm very young. But it's only really now, in the last few years, I must admit, that the puzzle is coming together better for me. Yeah. I mean, some people might have, but I must have had some of the puzzle, but now we're starting to see it. So working in some of those NGOs on certain projects, I looked back a few years on some of the things I had done in other fields, not this area, but it is social engineering. And some of that was stuff that was promoted and that I was part of promoting, that has been very destructive in some theatres of the world. I can't say anything more than that, but highly destructive. And then a lot of the other areas that I have been involved in, I now look at them, they are straight out of the playbook of the WF and the whole social engineering sort of agenda. And what really made me sad was last year I was supposed to have this huge reunion with about 26 colleagues from this massive project that was funded by the Premier's Department in Queensland. So I was so cross with them all. Only 2 out of about 26 of them understand that something's really wrong. And those 2 are actually not born in Australia, and they both come from countries that have gone through war. The others, I think they've always tolerated me, because they've always wondered why do I care about, Wesley Clark's 7 wars in 5 years and all that. They call themselves social justice warriors. That's what they've called themselves, except they got a pay packet for it, and so did I. But I've always put as much work in voluntarily. So to cut it really short, if I can, these people call themselves social justice warriors, but they have been enablers of the horrors that we are seeing, even though they actually meant well. So they are not social justice warriors. And I told them last year what I thought of them, and I said I won't be going to the reunion.
Yeah.
Some people,
well, sometimes it's...
Sorry, Kim, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. Sometimes some people just need to hear it straight. I think particularly in this current environment now as well, where a lot of people seem to appear to be going not back to sleep, so to speak, but getting the routine back into their lives and not so much interested anymore in shouting from the rooftops. We're not locked in our homes anymore, but we all know where this destructive path is going. What would be some ideas that we could give people to make them aware that was just the beginning?
Look, I think the best advice that I can give, I don't know if that's the right one or not, is for people to become rational. We're seeing a terrible degradation of rationality. And that's a global feature. It's happening everywhere. And people have to go back to the basics. You always go back to the basics. Don't believe anything just because someone says it is, just because it's on television, just because a politician says it, just because a friend or even a spouse says it. Just work it out for yourself. Ask questions, and if any of the answers don't make sense, then ask more questions. And that's one of the things that we could see was being ignored when this whole COVID thing came up, because people who were asking questions, genuine questions, they were censored, they were hushed, they were ridiculed, they were even punished and sacked and all of that. Just that's not how science works. Mm-hmm. This is not how you find out information. Humanity developed, science and technology developed by people asking questions, by trying not to repeat the same mistake again. And unless we employ those basic foundations of how to get the right information, then we cannot move forward. But you cannot force people or make them become rational. It's a decision they have to reach about themselves.
Why do you think so many people are frustrated or not wanting others to know the truth? Like, some people ask questions and it's like they get annoyed with people asking questions. It's like they don't want to know the truth. They don't want to know what's out there, what's really going on. Why do you think people are so afraid to know the truth of what's really going on?
Look, I don't know if anyone can answer this question. I think that fear-mongering plays a big part in it. And also, I was exchanging this idea with a friend, just a couple of days ago, that my generation, took pride in being, an advocate of free thinking and free. Freedom of thought and expression and all of that. And today's youth, they accept coercion. They accept censorship. This is like a huge step backwards. But why? Why? You ask yourself this question because they've been told, unless you do this, then you are not going to be allowed to do this. And they accept it. They're so addicted to things like Facebook, for example. So they're prepared to go through the humiliation of being censored by Facebook just to be on it. Just to be on it.
But I think a lot of the people I've met who I consider as thinking people, but who don't sort of come along with us on this terrible journey, it's because they may hear you tell them something and they'll nod in agreement, but they are very busy in their life and they are not prepared to make the commitment to go down what we call the rabbit hole. So for a lot of them, they're not willing or able to make that commitment. And like I was saying before, with Iman was talking about education. In our stand in the park, I have to boast, we have amazing people in our stand in the park. In fact, one particular gentleman in his late 80s, he's huge. He's Mr. in charge of community education. And he is always devising ways to go out into the community and educate on really important issues like digital identity and all kinds of stuff like that. So our stand in the park is huge on community education.
In January this year, you and Iman initiated a learning pod. Can you tell us a little bit more about this and how it's progressing?
Oh, well, actually, I was very naughty. I went to as usual. I went to another network on the other end of the mountain. They're a really great network. They're amazing. And they had decided that they were going to start learning pods because all these teachers have lost their jobs. So, they could get some tutoring work and so on. And I was sitting there thinking, my house is really big and I feel guilty about my house. And I put my hand up and I went home to my husband and I said, oh, by the way, we're going to have starting a learning pod here. And that's how it started. And
how did you feel about that, Iman?
I beg your pardon?
How did you feel about that when she said, that's it, Iman, opening our home to a learning pod?
Look, I mean, my children and grandchildren are in Sydney, and these are our surrogate grandchildren, really. Honestly, we just love them.
And that pod has become part of this broader community. So, they're also embraced in the stand in the park or this sort of satellite one that's up here on the hill.
Fantastic.
And we have the outside area. The outside area here has a large table and chairs, and the parents and the whoever's. And I just say to my husband, "Oh, it's over in the community centre." I call that the
Nice.
community centre. And my kitchen's always full of mums and stuff. So we have heaps of fun. It's just been amazing.
I'll have to make my way over to Queensland one time. It sounds like there's a lot of fun that happens on over in Queensland. Susan, would you say that the networking between the parks, down in the parks, and the groups and the different things that you're involved in is really important for the community and for this movement, this freedom movement that we're all wanting to step into a new paradigm?
We will not get anywhere if we don't do that. We will not get anywhere unless we understand that we have to build community. It has its struggles, and there's all sorts of characters out there, and sometimes I think you do have to be tough about certain things, but you must build a community. You must build a new world, a new paradigm, a new reality, and you need to be able to somehow slide in and out of the mainstream society and that, because we won't at this stage anyway be able to completely be separate from it, which is the wish of many of us.
I think I absolutely love what you were saying about the learning pods and having mums come over all the time. I think it's just wonderful. And, I think that we as Australians could learn a lot from other cultures as well when it comes to communities, because if you look at some of the other ones, they have the younger or the middle-aged generation now looking after their elderly, and they all chip in and they all do it together. And I think somehow in a lot of places in Australia, well, most places in Australia, that has just been almost beaten out of us, where we've lost that sense of community and that real deep sense of family. And we know there's many, many, many different reasons for that. So did you find that it was a learning progress for reminding people of what community actually is?
Absolutely. We have over the decades, well, not us, but in general, our societies, as we all know, have been degraded in every possible way. So, who would have thought, in the last couple of decades that we would be, with great effort, building what used to be in the past a pretty healthy community, So this is very exciting. And I think that most of us in our movement know that this is what we have to do.
Yeah. Guys, what's some of the challenge that you were facing? What are some of the challenges that you've faced in building your communities?
The normal dynamics that happen in groups, whether that was pre all of this or post, certain dynamics where, maybe you might be saying, we don't barter, we share. We don't, like things to do with values that maybe not all shared by others because they might not have learnt some values. Probably wouldn't go any further than that. There are occasionally struggles, but I think that as time has gone by, they get ironed out, and the people who can't sort of make it, they might just, they may end up leaving. Yep. And going maybe somewhere where it suits them better. Each park is different. Each one is a different community with different people, but I think we really got somewhere very good now. I'm really happy. I think we have progressed to a very mature level now with, with a large amount of very active involved members. It's not a huge stand anymore, like all the stands in Queensland, because I'm on that group of, they all had a dramatic drop after the elections, and a lot of people went off and they reevaluated their lives, or they went bush and that. But we have still a very good number, and most of them are highly engaged and play important roles. So that's community development too.
I've been watching the comments, and obviously that you have a lot of supporters, I think, on there tonight. There's a lot of people, I think, saying how important the communities are and how hard you guys work. The comment here was someone's just said, my social circle has never been stronger and more honest. The cloud of what is happening is huge, but the silver linings are also huge. Society needed changing, unwinding, and getting back to the grassroots and the strength of community. And I definitely think that's been really good for the Stand in the Parks brought about. The TAP satellite groups, all about creating communities as well. And I think, it's really good that we can all intermingle and share with each other. One of the other things that you guys have been doing, I believe, is you formed a neighborhood network. How did you start this and what's the purpose of it?
Yeah, well, I actually referred to that before, but I called it like a satellite of Nambour, which is probably not very fair. It's just that quite a few of the people in Nambour are actually up on the hill here. So I said, look, we also need to have very much neighbourhood groups, because when things get very tough, you may only be able to relate with your neighbours, and you may be able to walk to them or use a quad bike because we're semi-rural. And and that's why also in that neighbourhood community that we've set up, which is sort of connected a bit with Nambour, we're all about food growing, medicine, identifying plants to eat, but we're still in the fairly early stages. I mean, half of us know each other dearly and very well from Nambour, but that's a lovely core we've got there. So we should be able to attract more people in who we haven't met yet.
But also, if I may add, part of it also, of course, is socializing. People need to sit and talk and interact and joke and laugh. It's not just about prepping but I mean, look at this. The beauty of COVID, if I can put it that way, it brought all of those people together. Without this terrible calamity, those people wouldn't have found each other.
Yeah.
And I always give credit to Brady. I don't know if he's watching here today or not, Brady Gunn. If it wasn't for Brady and his initiative about sit in the park, stand in the park, because we sit in the park. I call it sit in the park. Thousands of people wouldn't have met each other. I mean,
I agree. I agree. A question for you both from one of our viewers. They think it's important. We think it's important that all the groups, like the Australia Project, the Stand in the Park, the common law groups, all these sorts of groups that are getting together need to work together. What are your thoughts on that, and how can we achieve that? Because there's a lot of ego that goes on in all these freedom movements. Let's not deny that. And people are scared to join together because they think they're going to lose their followers, so to speak, if they join together and all this sort of stuff. What are your thoughts on that, and how can we really collaboratively work together without losing each other's identity, I suppose?
Look, I wish I had an easy answer to this. What happened in the last elections was actually a result of the failure to be able to do this. And we have to learn from our mistakes and not repeat those same mistakes again. And, people need to put their egos aside, and they have to think of what is the most important thing that I'm trying to achieve here. And if they're able to do this, then they connect. And if they're not able to do this, then they can't connect. It's easier said than done, I understand. But, the more people talk about it, the more they interact with each other. And those little groups, those little satellite groups, the more they interact, the more this is likely to happen.
I think one of the great beauties of the Stand in the Park, or at least to try to achieve that aim, is, you look at all these amazing people, but you also learn to smile and just consider what they say, because it may be totally not what you believe in. But I think that ever since we've had this crisis in the last few years, my mind has exploded in terms of being open, because you'll find in every park, including ours, people with so many diverse philosophies and beliefs about the future. And for instance, there was some common law who said you should not go and vote, and I understand exactly where they're coming from. But there was a whole group of us who said, it's here, you still have to try. You might as well try to elect a few big voices in Parliament who can make a nuisance of themselves or have a hung Parliament or something, But so there are some very fundamental differences with some groups. But like in any war, you must you must look at the key areas that you must work together and achieve, and sort it out afterwards without having a conflict.
Yeah, look, if I may add something here, I always use the example of coffee and tea here. If you ask a group of people, are you a coffee person or a tea person, or are you a dog person or a cat person? You'll get maybe 50-50 split. And then you say, well, do you like coffee with sugar or without sugar? You get another 50% split. So 25% of the 100% that you started with will agree on one thing, and then with milk or without milk. So people need to focus on a common unifying objective. And the more they diversify their objectives, the more objectives they add on, the more they are likely to find divisions. So they should really focus, the freedom movement should focus on what is its main objective. One thing, just define it and be unified to achieve that particular objective.
Fantastic. I love that, Iman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would work so well. It's a very, very difficult thing to achieve nationwide, though. Although it was really interesting when they had the Canberra rallies down there. I think actually there was a lot of good that came out of that in many ways, apart from the number of people, which was a very good projection to the rest of the population, that there are a lot of people thinking on the same page. I also think it was very much a part of the start of reminding people exactly what community is. And that was due to the enormous amount of people staying in the one place, the enormous amount of people that were helping each other out, and the enormous amount of people that were prepared to stand side by side or for what they actually believed in. So it was a really beautiful thing to see. Yes, there was a lot of ego and obviously a lot of implanted division as well. But I think from there it grew, and people took that with them for many months afterwards. Then we saw just a bit of we saw the wave down after the elections, and then you tend to forget those feelings or what actually happened in an event like that. And sometimes maybe we need a reminder in another situation. So the building of the community forms that same glue, that same friendship that we've been talking about tonight, and really starts to move things forward, because it's a belonging. It's a belonging in your tribe. And we're all human. We need that sense of touch and that sense of support all along the way. So it's quite incredible what you're doing and what different groups are doing all around the country as well, to revive and instill that sense of community, not just in a large event, but on a continuous rolling ground as well. So it's amazing what you're actually pulling together.
Well, thank you very much. Well, actually, I was in Canberra in February.
And I was with the kids here.
Yeah, she had to hold the fort.
The cats and the kids.
And, it was an amazing feeling, and I fully agree with you. And it was the beginning of something that didn't end, on that day. It was just the very first step, of people getting together, uniting. And let's not forget that Australia's never had war on its soil. I hope it never will. And the people need to learn these skills, of how to be united, how to seek proper leadership, and what kind of government do they really want. And that was just the beginning. And
Well, as we're getting close to wrapping up, guys, we have a huge role moving forward to support those that are still waking up around us, that are still finding their way, navigating through this. There's a big divide between, let's say, the vaxxed and the unvaxxed, and there's a lot of tragedy that possibly will come out of that. As a community, as we step into building these communities, obviously we want to be there for them when that starts to unfold for them. What advice can you give people? Because there's some very strong people that said, nah, that's it, I don't want to know. They did it to themselves. But when reality comes and information comes out and people get that real shock of what's actually happened, what can we do to really prepare ourselves to support our communities and those around us when a lot more truth comes out about what has gone on? What can you guys?
I think we can answer it together. Well, we're going to be very busy. We're going to be run off our feet. We have to love them. We have to care for them. Most of them are our children or
Yep.
of our families.
Yep.
You must not reject them. And there are certain solutions that can possibly assist with them of spike proteins and other things. There will be, perhaps, to whatever extent they've had the jabs, there will be some solutions. But I think all of us have got family, our loved ones like this. And you know, every now and then, you know, a dear friend comes up and he's had a stroke and he's behind his eye, he's bleeding. And you keep saying, my dear, it's because of this, and they're in denial.
Yeah.
But you just keep loving them. You keep being patient.
Yeah. I feel your pain, Susan. My whole family's been done, every single one of them. I'm the only one who hasn't. And it is heartbreaking to watch and know, you know, what's coming. And it's going to be, you know, it's a tough thing to be able to, I've been sort of alienated from them. And so it's going to be a really tough thing to come back and go, you know, hey, I've always been here for you, and I will be here for you when the truth comes out, because I think they're going to need it, you know. So
Iman's children, he found out because that's our second marriage, his children from his first marriage, 3 of them, he found out on one day that they all had been, you know, jabbed.
yeah.
And he said it reminded him of the feeling of when a bomb has dropped on someone's house during the war,
Yeah.
and everybody in that house has been killed, and you've been told your whole family has, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's very dramatic,
Yeah.
but we certainly hope that we're going to find solutions to save everyone.
Yeah, totally. Guys, look, I really want to thank you, Susan and Iman, for your time this evening. It's been like enlightening talking to you. I'm sure you've got way more knowledge. We may even have to organise another interview, especially when we hear about like the things that we can do to help our communities more. So we may even down the track, as we start to have some spaces available, we'll get you back on again and we'll share some more stuff with you. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you both on here and talking with you this evening. Thank you, Kim, for co-hosting with me this evening. It's been a bit different without the boys tonight. So Kim and I did that by ourselves tonight. Hopefully we did Triple Chat proud, but thank you everybody, and thanks to everyone, to all our listeners out there and all the people participating in our chat. We've definitely seen all your comments, and yeah, I agree, Amanda, it's been an absolutely great chat tonight. So thank you very much, and we will see you all same time, same place next week on Triple Chat. Bye for now.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Iman, and much love to you both.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.